and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we are going to talk with our Healthy Families expert, Alvean Lyons, about blended families and how we negotiate those hazards, particularly around the holiday times, but actually all the time. Welcome, Alvean.
Thanks. Good morning.
This is a tough topic. Many of us come from mixed or blended or, cobbled together, changed families at some point along the way. I know I negotiated that as a kid.
Right.
A lot of people do, and it can be tricky.
It is, because you're talking about the most precious thing in your world, and that's your kids. And then you're dealing with some of those issues in ways that may be a byproduct of divorce. It could be an issue of open adoption. It could be a byproduct of the way that families came together that perhaps were never married at all, but are trying to figure out how to co-parent. We've got to navigate so many very modern and different kinds of family dynamics. So that blend is not the traditional Brady Bunch blend sometimes. It may have come together in very unusual ways. In some situations, we may even be dealing with one of the grandparents has custody of a child, and the parents are trying to figure out how to negotiate some things even when you're looking at those kinds of blends. So the reality is we don't have a very traditional family in America anymore. We are a unique country with very unique families, and figuring out how to effectively navigate that becomes even more important, especially on behalf of our kids.
Right. So you're going to have some tips for us. I know you are.
That's what they call me here for. So yes, we're going to talk about that kind of dynamic in terms of an acronym. And we always come with one, so it's easier for parents to remember things in a very busy, fast-paced, stressful sometimes world. So we're going to use the word blend. Okay? So let's start with B, bridge. A lot of times when we're navigating these spaces, we may find ourselves, because of the emotional issues, acting more as barriers to the other parent involved than we really are acting as bridges for our kids. Our children did not sign up for the adult dynamics. The reality is they are just passengers sort of in the car of their families.
Right.
And we did not get a chance to figure all of that stuff out ahead of time. So we at the adult level are working through our stuff, but our kids are tagging along in this process. And they don't understand some of the emotional dynamics that may come along with these power dynamics. So all they know is the people that they both love and are learning how to figure out how to keep them both in their world. All they know is that that's not working out sometimes, or that it comes with some different stressors than perhaps their friends who may have mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, whatever it may be, in their houses together, that I'm trying to figure out how to make this thing work. And so doing that is not always easy, but making sure that our kids don't have to feel that tug of war really has to be a priority for us at an adult level.
And bridge, I think it also means you have to not just talk to the ex, but if there's a step parent, if there are other adults that you maybe didn't want in the picture, but actually are in the picture, you have to recognize that.
It's true.
To be civil.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it's not fair to put the kid in the middle, because they can feel that tension.
Absolutely.
Even when they're pretty darn young.
Absolutely. They're profoundly sensitive to what's going on. And sometimes as adults, we underestimate just how sensitive they are to it. We may get things like seeing our kids act out in school, having some changes in their social dynamics. They're behaving a little differently in their personal worlds, and we don't know what it is. But the truth is, sometimes it's just a byproduct of them responding to what's going on with us at the adult levels, but they don't have the words for it. Kids don't always have the language to be able to put together how they feel and what they wish would happen and what they wish you would understand. So sometimes they act out their fears, they act out their discomforts, and we have to be sensitive as adults to those messages. We can't be so consumed with our worlds that we do not hear or see what's going on in theirs. So we really have to focus first at being a bridge for our kids. Don't let our stuff become their stuff. And it's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
But it can be done. It requires a certain level of discipline, making sure that we do not forget that while we may be 100% us, our kids are 50% of each of these parties involved. So when you attack the other party, for the child, you're attacking 50% of who I am. Even when I too may know that mom or dad or whoever may be dropping the ball, was not doing what they're supposed to do, half of my heart is still theirs. So I need you to be able to navigate that thing without having to attack 50% of me.
Right.
Or
forcing the kid to feel like they have to make a choice.
Right.
Or they have to pick an alliance.
Right.
You can't, if you're warring parties, the kid's just lost. It's not fair.
It's true. And the final thing that I'll say about that is, for our kids, most of them just want all the people they love in their world together, getting along well. And it doesn't matter how old they are. Mm-hmm. I have a 21-year-old adopted daughter, and she still wants us all to be able to work together. Kids never lose that. She's a young adult and still wants it.
Oh, I know people who were old and grown up when their parents divorced and felt it like they did when they were in middle school.
Absolutely. So
it's an underpinning of a kid's
definitely
foundation.
Right. It's who I am. So everybody wants that storm to be quieted. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants it to be a peaceful place, and we don't lose that. So we as adults have to do the adult thing, which sometimes is the toughest thing, and being able to not let our feelings become our kids' pain. So
Right.
The first focus in Blend is being a bridge. Don't be a barrier. Then the second one, L, listen. Our kids, as I referenced previously, send messages 100 different ways. And every parent wants to be a great parent. We're all trying to do the best we can. We're just, running as hard as we can on that little hamster wheel, just trying to make sure that we're getting it all right. And we're never going to get it perfect. But if we are plugged in the process, we're going to get a whole lot more right than we're going to get wrong. And when I say that, I'm really speaking to the fact that we've got to listen to the messages of both our kids and our partners in this raising process. We've got to hear what it is that they're saying, but actively, and let me reference listening as opposed to just hearing. Because the truth is, we all could hear it, but we're not always listening. Mm-hmm. There is a difference between the two. We've got 2 ears, we may be able to hear you, but we listen with our hearts, that I can get beyond what it is that I'm planning to say next and the point that I need to make so that you understand my perspective in all of this, to be able to just sit and engage with you and take in what it is that you're saying so that that in some way can shape the way that perhaps I approach the situation. I could be totally right. Nobody's arguing that. This is not about what's right and what's wrong all the time, but it is about what's effective for your family. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we got to suck some stuff up because it's in the best interest of our kids, given what it is that they're telling you is hurting them. Yes, you may have the right to say, God, you dropped that ball and you knew you should have been there, or you didn't do what you said you were going to do, or you haven't been there. But all of those things don't move the ball forward. If our goal is to be able to create a healthy environment for our kids, then that sometimes means we have to push past our own experiences and our own pain to be able to make our kids' issues our priority. So listening, yet again, I will say, always easier to say than it is to do. But our goal is to raise our consciousness about what's happening in these relational dynamics so that we can make more right choices than wrong ones, because our kid is our priority, not us. So that takes care of our L. Then we get to the E, expectations. Listen, you're going to have to be clear about your expectations. When we come up to the adult level, a lot of the fall apart, a lot of the chaos is a byproduct of us not being clear about what we're expecting. A lot of times we use words, and it's very common, particularly in America, we say common sense solutions and common sense approaches. But quite frankly, there are very few things that are common to anybody, because we're all doing this thing through the lens of our understanding, the way that we grew up, the way that we orient, the experiences we've had. And it makes perfect sense to us, but it may make no sense to somebody else.
Right.
Even someone we love and made a child with. So to take this approach that you should get it is, quite frankly, foolish. If we're not communicating it effectively, if we're not focused more on getting this job done together than we are on winning, because whenever we orient towards winning, somebody loses. But if we're really just thinking about our child, if you have to orient towards winning, think about your kid winning. And that then means that you and I have to put down our swords, or whoever this team of adults are who may be involved in the child's life. We can't be so interested in drawing blood from one another that accidentally we harm our kid.
Well, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. For people for whom this was a prior relationship,
Right.
probably had that going on the whole time, and it contributed to why things didn't work out. And
right.
It's very hard to change that pattern
Yeah.
once you've been in
It's
it
true.
for that long, because you're carrying that baggage with you.
Absolutely. And it's real. And in no way am I minimizing the significance of that, because it may have come with some very real pain, some really deep hurts. But what it means to be an adult and what it means to be a parent gives us the responsibility to have to put some of those things on the side for our kids. We've got to separate our stuff from their stuff. If we want them to have a shot at being whole, we can't take pieces of them away the entire time they're growing.
Right.
And when we battle each other, where the child is literally just carnage of all of that, then we are destroying the very thing that it matters most to both of us unintentionally. Because I'm not suggesting that any parent who loves their kid is intending to harm them while they're trying to stand their ground on something that may be very real for them. So I acknowledge all of that. But I am saying that when you focus first on the success of your kid and the wholeness of your child and the happiness of your kid, it will often take us to a place where we acknowledge the fact that, you know what, I may be right, but it's not going to be helpful in this moment.
Exactly. And I think, some people are able to say, what happened back there is now gone.
Right.
I'm not fighting that
battle anymore.
The battle
Right.
I'm fighting is to raise a great kid
Absolutely.
with your involvement, whatever
Absolutely.
that may be.
However
And
active or
with
limited
many,
that might be.
It is because it isn't just your ex if you had one. It
Right.
is maybe also who they're with now, who you're with now.
Right.
I mean, the dynamic is just so complicated.
It is true. And that you brought something very important to the conversation, in that not only are we doing our thing, but if we have other partners, our partners are also in the car with us in this process. So they too, they're feeling your hurt. They may even be feeling the other person's perspective because they know what it's like to be sort of in the passenger seat in all of this. There are so many dynamics that can be at play, but clearly communicating about what's going on, why we're doing the things that we're doing. A lot of times we act, but we don't explain the intention behind it. So why we're doing what we're doing and examining those things so that why we do what we do governs the what that we're doing, and sorting those things out. So it's not flawless, and it's not perfect, and it's not always simple, but communicating expectations is really essential, and making sure that both your new partner or your co-parents in the process are doing and having those necessary conversations in order to minimize the misunderstandings.
Right.
That
They still
often
may
come.
not meet the expectations.
Right.
But they don't stand a shot at meeting the expectations
If you haven't talked about it.
communicated
Exactly. I mean, you literally are setting them up for failure. So, and our kid is the person who really cashes the check on that. So we really want to make sure that we raise yes, things have happened, but we're here now.
Right.
And here's what we need to do right here to make the best of this. We need to make the next right decision instead of trying to fight old battles all over again. So expectations become really important. Coupled right next to that is our N, your non-negotiables. There are some things for us as adults that are not up for negotiation because they are literally core to who we are. So for instance, if for me, education is fundamental to what I want for my kids because I understand how important that thing is, and the other parent is kind of like, hey, he's great at music. He could be a musician. Never mind his grades. It's not really that important. But this is core for me. You know, I need to know that you're going to be able to stand on your own 2 feet when you get out of this house. And I'm all for your music career, but we want to make sure that you can do basic math so you can count your money, you know, like, or read your contract. You know, those things are kind of essential. Then it may require for us that we make some things clear. You want the kid to be free and enjoy their lives and be happy, and I'm all for that. I want the kid to have an education. That does not necessarily mean we're on 2 different pages. If we are clear about our non-negotiables, we can integrate those 2 things at the same time. Here's what I want. I want to support them doing their music. I want to make sure that they'll get there. I get what you're saying. They need to follow their passions. I need them to have good grades, though. I need them to understand how important that education is. So here's what we can do together, given the 2 things we both want. I'm going to stay on top of them about school, so I just need your support where that's concerned, and I will support you in making sure that they get to music lessons or that they're practicing their music when they're over here or using the technology if they're actually creating digital music. I will make sure when they're with me, they're doing those things too. But we're both able, as a byproduct of the expectations and the communications, we're both able to bring those non-negotiables to the table and in a mature fashion address them. Mm-hmm. And then we get to our D. We got to determine what roles we're going to play in this. While we're both assuming each person's going to do what, because all of them are complementary. If I'm assuming that you've got your part covered, but we've not talked about that, and you're assuming I have my part covered, or that, you know, Sean was grounded at my house and then he gets to your house and he's hanging out with friends like nothing ever happened and he didn't just fail that class, then we're going to have some issues. And that's where new levels of conflict bring up old wounds because you never support me.
Right.
So here's it coming back to the surface again, which still takes us back to the importance of being bridges for our kids and listening to what's going on with our partners and the kids themselves and being clear about the expectations and knowing what those non-negotiables are all come into the determining what roles we're going to play in all of this. We are going to have to own our roles and the responsibilities associated. And when someone drops the ball, communicate about that, but understand that you can only control what happens when the kid is with you. You cannot force the other parent to be somebody different than they are. You can continue and consistently model and communicate those things, but you can only control your household. And ultimately, kids respect stability. So don't start becoming a spinning top because other things are happening other places. You be stable in your environment so that child has a place where they can plant their feet and they know where they are for sure. Even if they're going to have to fuss with you about it because they know that at your house they have to be in bed by 10 o'clock.
If you're the unfun parent.
Right.
Don't get in that game of trying to match,
do that.
trying
Don't
to
do
win
that.
favor.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people do.
I agree. And when we are our best self, when we parent the way that we know how to parent best, our kids actually benefit from that. And I'm saying that to say that we don't have to compromise our values because our partner is different. Our kid needs the wholeness of all kinds of experience. Life is going to have everything. And they have to be able to navigate those spaces. But what's important is that they're solid people. And they can't learn how to be solid if we're spinning around like a typhoon, you know. So it's important for us that we determine where we're going to stand, what roles we're going to have, and no matter what anybody else does, outside in society, inside the other parent's house, what happens in our house is going to be the most important house that we will ever have because that's the only one we control.
Well, now let me ask you, all these things are hard to begin with.
Sure.
But when you enter a holiday period,
Right.
Everything just has higher stakes. You know, there's one Christmas Day, there's
Right.
one Easter morning, there's one, you know, Rosh Hashanah. I mean,
Right.
how do you, one birthday, your
Right.
kid has one birthday. Now,
Right.
who gets it? And how does that all, how do you work through, how do you apply these nice calm things that you said to those periods of really heightened expectations and tensions and traditions?
You have to do your best to not create false dilemmas. And a lot of times what gets us in trouble is we create either or scenarios when there are both scenarios. And what I mean by that is, yes, Christmas is on December 25th. Yes. But what does Christmas mean to you? What is it about? Is that stuck on one day? or is it about the experience as a whole? So sometimes when we back up from that particular singular thing and we pay attention to, but why does that thing matter to me? I love Christmas because it's an opportunity to do the following as we address the why. Okay, does that have to happen on December 25th this year? Could it not happen on December 24th or December 16th or whatever day it is and time it is that you have with your kid? Kids do not mind having 2 Christmases. Okay?
Yes, I know that
Let's be
is
clear.
true.
So the issue really is that we mind. It's not so much about our kids, which goes back to what I was saying previously. When we put our kids' needs before ours, we are far more likely to be able to figure out collaborative solutions. But when we are holding fast and hard to, I get this day until 12:01, and I'm not going to take the kid back until 12:01 and 59 seconds. That's about us. That's not about them. He or she had a great time with you already, and let them go have a great time with your co-parent or the grandparents or whoever it is that you're sharing this process with. We need to not create false dilemmas because more often than not, it's an adult issue. It's really not in the best interest of the kid.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We can do it.
We can do it.
It's not always easy, but it can be done.
All right. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For these tips. And thank you for watching. I hope you will remember all of these things, which, I've probably forgotten already. but when you have a blended family, when you have additional complexities, and frankly, that's probably more families that have some complexity than don't, put the kid first and think about being a bridge, listening,
the expectation.
Clear expectations that are expressed, not assumed, non-negotiables,
and determine your roles.
She's coaching me. and put all that together, but the simple thing is, put the kid first and work out your stuff around the edges. Thanks for watching.